There's a lot of leads coming in that they have to focus on. The fear is they miss out on a lead. And if there's enough feeding them, most people won't get out from behind their desk. The path of least resistance is closing that lead that comes in. A simple way to fix this problem, if you want more generation of leads, is to adjust the commissions based on the fact of if it's self-generated or agency generated. The agency had to spend money and time and marketing to get that lead. I want to talk about something I think is so complicated for so many agencies. If you're getting into the habit of goal setting, or you have goals and you're questioning if they're right, I think setting goals for producers can often be unbelievably complicated. And I think it's complicated for a couple of reasons. One of the biggest ones is there's a lot of chatter out in the industry of my producer sell this, my producer sell that. And there's so many variables on how to set producer goals. And that's why as we focus on sales in November, getting ready for the next year, I thought it'd be really great to talk about a little bit about how we approach setting goals for producers inside of agencies. And I think it's more complicated than we make it out to be. Now, there's some instances where it's very simple for larger agencies where they have set producers and that's all they do. And they have account managers and they have different roles. And by the way, it's an awesome thing to get to as you grow. I think that that's, easier. But in many agencies that we work with, kind of in that 10 to 40 person range, it's in a department might be short staffed and the producers helping out, or we've got personal lines, which is different than commercial lines. We've got different lead sources. So I thought it would be kind of cool to take a minute and break down some of the considerations that we have when it comes to producers. And we also have some goals for every producer too. The first consideration when I work with an agency that we have is what percentage of their time is spent on sales. And it's not what you'd like it to be. The goal should be tied into what it is today. Because many producers wear multiple hats, this has to be a consideration. There's many agencies I work with where people service and sell all at the same time. So it's just when the lead comes in, it might be a rewrite, it might be a new piece of business, it might be an endorsement. It's a little uncontrollable, but you have to kind of identify and target that, because in those situations where there's a big blend or they're doing everything start to finish, you almost want to have a team sales goal because those people can develop cross-sell opportunities as well as make sure they prioritize new business. You have to identify because they're servicing and selling. Some agents service their own book as they're growing. So that means sales goals have to get to a place where you want to be able to afford a service person or be able to distribute service. Some sales agents are mentors to other agents, and this may hold back their sales goal a tad bit. Some are handling renewals. I see a lot of agencies that we've come across recently where the producers are quoters. So they quote remarkets and they quote new business all at the same time. That can be a little jammy, really easy to help a client save money, harder to win a new piece of business. They might have other roles and responsibilities. So I really want everybody to just start by thinking about, well, my producer, what is their job description? And maybe even back your way out to, I need to update their job description while they're doing many other things than sales. That's a good opportunity to help reorganize a few things. The next consideration we have is what types of leads are they going after? Are they generating their own leads by prospecting? Are they dependent on you to generate leads? And I think for a lot of agencies, we think producer, we really want them to go out and generate their own leads, which I totally agree with. There's a lot of leads coming in that they have to focus on. The fear is they miss out on a lead. And if there's enough feeding them, most people won't get out from behind their desk. The path of least resistance is closing that lead that comes in. A simple way to fix this problem, if you want more generation of leads, is to adjust the commissions based on the fact of if it's self-generated or agency generated. The agency had to spend money and time and marketing to get that lead. So you can easily see how that would be a scenario. Another thing that we want to think about is how do we go ahead and make sure that the types of leads that they're focused on are right? Sometimes the call-in business might be lower in nature. So what I mean by that is it may be smaller premium, and you really want people targeting bigger stuff. That's going to need to be out of the office, worked on. Very few that those things call in. They might, after being worked on, you need a producer out there producing. So identify, are they taking all call-in things, which tend to be smaller, and we can cross-sell them, and it's not bad business? Or are they out hunting and killing and going and finding those leads? There'll be just two different goals on that front. Our next step of finding how to set producer goals is really insurance agent experience. And the experience level, I find, because a green producer that doesn't know how to spell workers' comp isn't going to be able to generate as much, but we all got invested in and we need to invest in them. Now, a veteran producer should have a built-up pipeline. They should be working X dates. They should have contacts. They should have referral sources. So their job becomes a little bit easier. We need to adjust our sales goals accordingly. So the green team member can, be leveled up. We like to kind of have a gradual rise on that every quarter. The veteran team member should still be challenged. Sometimes they get in their comfort zone and their rut and it just becomes easy, but they have greater potential. Also, sometimes the veteran team can push back on sales goals because they feel like, well, I've got all these clients to service. They just call me. That as an agency owner is something that you will need to tackle and make sure that, you have service set up accordingly so that the producers don't have to service. Now, I have a belief that service work always finds you. So if you're content, guess what? You're going to lean on the fact that you have to service when you really don't. You have to break up that habit. Producers are either hungry. Well, I'll go back. They're either starving, hungry, or satisfied. The reality is when a producer is satisfied, exactly that happens. Okay. They will not go out and get out of their comfort zone. You have to adjust things to make them a little bit more hungry or even starving to have something different. Now, your new producers really should be starving so that they're out doing all the activity. You don't want them literally starving now. So I don't want anybody calling the police on me and saying, she wants to starve producers. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they need to have enough motivation to get there. Now, you can always compensate them if you see them working hard, but they shouldn't know about it. That mental game of my back's up against the wall really does work. Next up is profitability. Producers in this industry must pay for themselves. Now, that could be over a 3-year schedule, 4-year schedule, 5-year schedule, whatever you feel comfortable with. But so many agencies hold on to producers who aren't really producing. They're not really profitable. And what ends up happening is the team starts resenting them. So if I'm an account manager and I'm managing 700 clients and there's a producer, let's just say, that comes and goes as they pleases and is selling $15,000 in premium a month and not returning my phone call, I'm kind of ticked. My job is harder. You have to watch producers and make sure that they're on track to be profitable. I see so many agencies hold on to the wrong producers because maybe they're very affluent in the community. Maybe you think everybody knows them. If they leave, it's going to be a tarnish on us. It won't. The news cycle will hit. 2 weeks later, no one will care. And you have just made your agency money that you could invest in other places. But holding on to producers that simply are not profitable is a drain on the resources of your business. As a CEO, one of your jobs is to be a steward of those resources. So don't think that holding on to, an agent that is unprofitable is worth it. Next up is alignment with company growth. This is really, really key. I think so many of us start with just a random number in mind, and we break down in our blog, which I hope you check out, the blog that's associated with this podcast. It's got some really great strategies in it of saying, what do you want your business to grow? And then what do we need to do to get there? This factors in rate increases. This factors in retention. Once you have that number, you now need to divide it. You need to divide it between personal and commercial, if that's how your agency's set up, or you need to divide it by producers. We need to produce this much. Or sometimes agencies take a small chunk and put it to personal lines or commercial line service because they can cross-sell and they can generate their own referrals. But knowing your target number of new business, if your retention stays strong, if your rate increases are there, is the way to start goals. That means you're on track. You also know what resources you need. You know how many leads need to be generated. But too often agencies just pull a number out and say, here you go. And we really want to move away from that as much as possible. You need to be more strategic because your job as CEO is to have a growth goal that the whole agency is targeting, not just producers. And there is about 8 ways to grow an agency. You can check out some of our past blogs on that. But we focus so heavily on new business. And I think that there's some other strategies we should take a look at. The next way to set goals is you have to identify your target audience. So desperate producers write anything, and then that causes bigger challenges later on. So when you're looking at what should we be writing, where should we be, think about minimum premium, minimum coverage, policy count. It's okay to say no to customers who are not a good fit for our agency. When we do that, yes, producers kind of hem and haw and stomp their feet because, gosh, they like to write anything because they don't have to really service it. For the most part. Some do, but most don't. Writing their best friend that has the underwater basket weaving dynamite company sounds like a great idea. Till you're looking at it and you're like, nightmare. You have to put those boundaries in up front. If you don't have them, you have to change them. Expect some kicking and screaming and stomping and all of the things, and then go ahead and work through it. And that's okay. I think so many times we see agency owners a little intimidated or scared by their producers because they want producers on their team. But the reality is, if producers aren't producing, just a total waste. If producers are producing the wrong business, they're a drain on resources. Let's make sure that we focus on that. Next up, we also need to identify kind of the difference between personal lines and commercial lines. So I do want to give you some target numbers that I think are sort of the minimums that people should be focused on. And I say this under the idea that they're majority selling. Okay. So all those factors I just went in on, you have to play into it. Again, if people are doing soup to nuts everything, you want to hit a team target. If you have people that are primarily sales, you need to hit a definite premium target. So if somebody's primarily selling in personal lines, they need to be at a $45,000 premium amount. I have some agencies at 60. I have some that on some months hit $100,000. So you can't say it's not possible. They will need to be working lists. They will need to be calling unsold customers. They will need to have lender referrals. But in all reality, that's under 4 policy quotes a day at a 50% closing ratio and an average premium of $1,000. What else are you doing if you're not quoting 4 policies a day? That's half your day. I think that there's a lot of waste in personal lines producers that, aren't putting up those kind of numbers. And unfortunately, a lot of agencies mix rewrites and new business with them. We don't agree with that. Rewrites can go to account managers to maintain that relationship and try not to rewrite them. We do not agree with anybody paying any bonuses on reshops. That is motivating the wrong behavior. And so many agencies we still bump into are like, well, we pay them on rewrites. Nope. I'm not paying people to reduce my commission. I'm going to pay them to save the account because that's part of their job and the growth bonus. And I'm not paying them to go ahead and rewrite my book because the motivation is, oh, they're mad. Let me reshop them. Then all of a sudden they land with a low commission company and we've cut their premium. And now we've got a customer that's going to ask for that every single year. Don't do it. In commercial lines, I strongly believe a producer that is primarily producing, again, not doing everything soup to nuts, but primarily producing, needs to be at a minimum of $60,000 in premium a month. Again, we have gusts up to our producers usually at 80, gusts up to 100, 120. But yes, as those things scale up, that is where you want them to be. And so if you're struggling with producer goal setting, I highly recommend you reach out to us. I mean, we customize these plans for everybody, all those little different factors we play into, and we put people on a goal. I do want to say real quick, what happens if people don't hit the goal? I believe this needs to be upfront. Clarity is kind. That is a statement I stand behind. People should know upfront if they don't hit the goal. But too many agencies are pansies about this, right? We shy away. We're like, well, they tried. I'm like, I try to be a bikini model. Doesn't mean anybody wants to see me doing that. Okay. Trying is not good enough in a production role. You either are making the company money or you're not. That is sales. We can't be too nice about it. Now you could move them to a different role. Salespeople need to sell insurance. We believe that in 12 months, if people do not hit their sales target, and you'll see in the blog, we also have some activity targets that we believe in, because for most producers, if they do the activity, they are going to hit their sales target. It all starts with activity. Activity is like a temperature gauge. They're doing this, we're on track. They're not doing this, we're not on track. So we're going to go ahead and get that temperature gauge going. But if they're not on track, we say in a rolling 12 months, I'm recording this right now in almost October. From September through October of last year, 3 times I didn't hit my goal, I should be on a performance improvement plan. And that means I can have a bad month. I can have a little bit of a difficult month. I could be off on vacation and be okay. But at that point, it should be a performance improvement plan. And the goal is to get them back on track, by the way. I think a lot of people shy away from performance improvement plans because it seems so crazy, but getting them back on track and having clarity of we're off track, this is the things I'm going to do to help you get on track, is really where you want to be. You have to invest back in that producer. And at that point, they either sink or swim. And if they sink, remember, they're not profitable. They're not making your agency money. Do not get emotional about this. Sales needs to be metrically driven. If they swim, great. We're back on track. Everybody's happy. We can go back to normal everyday life. I think if you're struggling setting producer goals, it's so normal. I hope our kind of outline gives you some clarity on that. Check out our blog, check out our sales course, because again, we're going to help you with all this stuff. There's no reason to not get help with running producers. Hearing sales skills from an outside party somehow just works a little better. We'll see you in our next podcast.